So, in an attempt to learn something about something, we tend to observe that thing. Now, when we observe something, we find, for the most part, that that thing has two kinds of characteristics. The primary characteristics and the secondary characteristics. Particularly in the yogic terminology, these are called Swarup Lakshana. Lakshana means symptoms or characteristics. So Swarup Lakshana and Tatastha Lakshana. Swarup indicates that which is primary, and Tatastha that which is secondary, or that or as internal versus peripheral. So when we observe ourselves, when we observe the self as we know the self, this one big unit right here as we're looking at it, we come to know that there are two things about this, about the self, the primary and the secondary, Swarup and Tatastha. Now, primary aspect of the self is, or primary aspect of anything else, concerns itself with the qualities that are constant, that do not change. Qualities that are constant. The secondary characteristics concern themselves with qualities, characteristics which are impermanent, which are transient. So when we observe the self, we see these two characteristics of the self. Now, what is it that is peripheral? In other words, what is it that is transient or impermanent about the self?
The body, the physical body.
The body, okay. Anything else? Gotta put your thinking helmets on.
Ideology.
What is it?
Ideology.
Ideology, very good. Okay. Yeah, because we do adopt some ideology. What else is transient about the self?
Behaviors.
Behaviors. Different parts of our lives will behave differently. What else is transient about the self? Hairstyle. Hey, I used to have long hair. Very long. That was 20 years ago. What else is transient about the self?
Memory.
Memory fades.
Memory fades, yet awareness is supposed to increase.
Yeah. Though memory fades, it's not something that we manage to maintain indefinitely. Anything else, perhaps? Anyone else? Yes.
Perception of Maya all around us.
Perception of things. Yeah, perception of things also changes. Okay. So that's the transient self. The mind changes. The mind changes also. We're certain times in one particular state of mind, and other times at a different state of mind. So the mind changes. What is it that's constant about the self? What stays?
Your individuality?
Our individuality, that's true. That's true. Though different people consider one's individuality different things. But there is the individuality that stays, that does not change, that's constant. So right now we have thought of different things that change. Now there is a thing about ourselves that observes all these changes. Like all these things change, but you observe these things. I don't know if anyone ever made the experiment where you lie down before you go to bed. provided you don't just snore off. But let's say you're still awake, and you can observe the activities of your own very mind. So you observe the activities of the mind. So that is the self that's constant. And that is the primary self. That is the primary self. The self that's using the eyes. Like she said, the body changes. That means these eyes also change. But the self uses the eyes to see. The self uses the ears to hear. The self uses the skin to experience the sensation of touch and acquire information about this world by the activities of touching. Okay, so now we have some kind of a clue as to what the primary self is and a clue what the secondary self is. Now the problem comes when we mix up the two. When we give primary importance to the secondary self and the secondary importance to the primary self. This is when we make a mess out of our lives. That which is primary self should be given primary concern and primary attention. Now, one thing, there is a saying that once you tell a lie, you have to keep on lying. Anyone ever heard this? Or experienced it? You say a lie once, you lie to your boyfriend or girlfriend, that I'm going with, the guy's telling the girl, I'm going with guys to a home party. And later on someone checks you in on Facebook, you were at a party of a girl that you were not supposed to be at. So you have to keep on lying, to justify this. So once you say a lie, you have to keep on lying to justify this. Now, why this is so? For the basic reason that lies are not true. They just don't fit in with reality. Because it don't fit in with reality, therefore we have to, in order to maintain this position, we have to keep on fortifying it with further lies or with further artificial arrangements. So first inauthenticity that we make in our lives is when we make the primary self the secondary, and the secondary self, we make it primary. Then we end up all throughout our lives making adjustments. Adjust. Like, for example, what's the nature of the physical body? If you want to know what the nature of the physical body is, observe it. Let it sit somewhere for a week. Make sure you don't wash it. The inside of it will come out. The perspiration, yeah. Anyone ever seen the inside of the body? A few times I watched. I'm perfectly mentally healthy. But I did watch a few autopsy videos. I was thinking, well, let me be real about life. Why hide something and expose myself to other things? Why not just be objective about things? Anyways, but that is the nature of the body. Now, when we make the body the primary self, that's when we run into difficulties. The secondary self, but it's like specifically this body now we're talking about, it's not intrinsically awfully too beautiful. But because we make it the primary self and therefore identify with it as the essence of ourselves, therefore we run into difficulties. And the difficulty is that that's a lie. And therefore we have to keep showing to the world by means of artificial arrangements that this body is a matter of fact beautiful. So you have to use makeup. Girls, when they're taking pictures of, they press their lips and push them forward so they look more full and sexy. they'll buy bras that will, shape their, or clothing that will, shape their bodies in a particular way, the way which their bodies are not. I remember when I was a teenage boy, a pretty girl sat next to me, and she laid her hand on my arm in the area of the bicep here, and my arm immediately went tense. I was like, hey, I'm a guy, she shouldn't touch it and feel it all soft. She'll be powerful and big and strong. So, I mean, if you ever try to pump your bicep while your hand is stretched out, it's a difficult task to do. And I felt good. I felt bad. I was busted. First of all, I was busted for not having. I was always kind of a skinny guy. I was busted for not having much of a bicep, and then on top of it, I was busted trying to lie, trying to present myself for what I was not. And that is a mistake we constantly do. We make a lie, we tell a lie, and then all throughout our lives, we need to fortify it, we need to make it true. But lie is always a lie. And this kind of a lifestyle is very stressful. Because time and time again, lies are exposed. There's another saying, I grew up in Mediterranean, Adriatic coast of Croatia, that I have another saying that those who lie are short-legged. Short-legged, in other words, if you have short legs, you can't run too fast. You get caught. So when you lie, you get caught. That's the purport. So you always get caught. And that's in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very famous Indian text on philosophy and spirituality, says that for a famous person, the worst incident that can happen is infamy. And that's what's happening. We're trying to present ourselves for that which we're not. And then the world as it is, the universe, just keeps revealing to the world what we really are. I'm smart, I'm beautiful, even sometimes when we come to spiritual circles, we try to present ourselves as more than what we are. I'm very enlightened. Everyone should offer special respect. Unfortunately, so the point is that this kind of inauthenticity or lie should be given up. You don't have to. You can continue, trying to be a movie star in a movie that no one wants to watch except you. When you examine all the pros and cons, it really seems that, the best is to drop this program. Because in the long run, this is very draining, very painful, and very stressful. And in the long run, to be authentic, to go with the truth, it's much more rewarding. It increases the nature and quality of our own happiness and generally our lives. Unfortunately, we live in a society that does not encourage this. We live in a society where the secondary self, don't worry, it doesn't bother me. You can answer it or ignore it, whatever you like. We live in a society where artificially the secondary self is promoted to the position of the primary self. And you're judged and rewarded accordingly. In other words, if this kind of a society, this kind of circle of friends should ideally be given up. Because these people are not your friends. They don't love you, they don't respect you, they don't hang out with you for what you are. They love you, they're so-called. They respect you because they want something out of you, and because you're trying to be that which you're not. And they can get something out of that. These are not friends, these are not parents, these are not... So best is to give up that kind of association, and that is the purpose of the Krishna Launch, to give you an opportunity where you can, meet people who think alternatively. Unfortunately, that's alternatively, but primary self is primary self. Secondary self is secondary self, and unless we get this right, individually and collectively, we're going to live in a frustrated nation, living in a frustrated environment. Personally, I don't like when someone, likes me or doesn't like me because my nose is straight or crooked. I get very disappointed with such a person. I don't allow such a person into my intimate life. I'll be friendly and all that, cordial, but not intimate. Because that person will ruin my own life just as it ruined its own. Like that.